If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Trump visited Biden at the White House, Trump's Bluetooth MAC address was obtained, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26th, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on January 28th. It is predicted that the San Francisco 49ers will win the Super Bowl in 2025. The San Francisco 49ers will win the Super Bowl in the 6+6+6th state to join the Union on February 9th, 2025, and will become the third team to win 6 Super Bowls, which hints at 3 sixes. San Francisco points to Pope Francis, the first of 2 antichrists in Bible prophecy. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the 5th trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, and more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on in case you can't find me later. All right, welcome. I cannot express enough how this video is perhaps one of the most important video on this channel. All right, now that's saying a lot. There are many, many important things on this channel, so I can't say it really. But this is definitely one of the most important videos, and the knowledge and insight regarding what God is doing through the knowledge and wisdom he is revealing through his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections continues to get deeper and deeper and more astounding as it goes. And I don't even have the words. This is just discovered this morning. The knowledge here, what's been revealed, is that God is communicating that delta brain waves will be what will induce the coming mass demonic possession of those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. This will be facilitated through 5G frequencies that will activate or trigger the self-assembling components in people, which will induce delta brainwave patterns in the brain, which will induce demonic possession. And I will prove this. The prediction being made in this video is for the purpose of proving what I am saying. That is the purpose of this prediction from God. Make no mistake. I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God and why God has given me a voice through this prediction. It is to prove that the information that is used to reveal the prediction is true, which will be explained in this video. In this video, I will explain how God is pointing to delta brainwaves, and it is the big picture here, including the eclipses that people know about. All of it is pointing to this. You will see. So I've titled it for a very, very good reason, this video, or this email anyway, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar." The famous first lyric from Paul Simon's very famous song, Graceland. Okay, I had always wanted to learn more how Graceland was important, because there are so many things regarding Paul Simon which are explained in the must-watch Paul Simon videos, but not enough has been explained regarding Graceland. And arguably, you would think that Graceland would be the most important thing about Paul Simon and his music career. And as I will explain, it is. But the insight only has just come now. All right, before we begin, I'm just going to give a little commercial here for the Tina Turner video. It's the exact same video as the Mayflower Pilgrims video and the Warlock Prophecy video. You need to watch one of those videos. It'll explain how it works, this trail of signs, and there are 70 videos with God's prophetic signs explained, leading a trail of signs to February 10th. I do not have the time to update those videos, but those videos need to be watched. The Tina Turner video will explain more why this is. All right, so you need to go back into the archive and find the videos predicting that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on February 10th, 2024. They must be watched. The Tina Turner video will explain why they must be watched. The information, your information is incomplete without watching the other videos that are predicting her crash on February 10th. And believe me, the purpose of the prediction is not for entertainment so that you can say, oh, cool, that's cool, you knew in advance that that would happen. No, that isn't the purpose of the prediction. The purpose of it is to communicate the information that is in these other videos. It would be one thing for God to tap someone on the shoulder and say, tell the world that such and such is going to happen on such and such date, but it would essentially give us nothing. It is through this big picture of signs and these interconnected trails of signs that God is able to tell these extremely important stories in order to communicate the extremely important knowledge and information that everyone needs to know that are explained or is explained in these other videos. This is the purpose of this prediction. And you will not have achieved the purpose of this prediction without watching the other videos. This is how it works. Okay, as I wrote, this is one of the most important videos. I have attached the diagram. The diagram I'm talking about is the diagram that's explained in the must-watch Ingenuity helicopter video. That's another long story that God has been telling for years that I'd always wanted a resolution to, and it has finally come. This Ingenuity helicopter video is the other most important video, if you will. You need to watch this Ingenuity helicopter video. It might even be worthwhile to watch it first and come back to this video, because that is the order of the revelation that came to me. And so it actually does make sense that you would watch the Ingenuity helicopter first. I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary, though. So the breakthrough insight is Delta. Okay, this knowledge about Delta has been known for a while, but now it's all coming together through Paul Simon. It's just more confirmation. But what it also does is bring in so much else of the big picture of signs that's just overwhelming how important now it is realized that delta brainwaves are. And if we think about it, it would be. If this is in fact how the mass demonic possession is going to happen, which is what this is all leading to, then you would figure that delta brainwaves plays a prominent role in God's signs, and it does, as I'll demonstrate. Okay. So the copter first landed in the ancient river Delta on Mars. Okay, the Ingenuity helicopter with its Perseverance probe, which by the way hints at the perseverance of the saints, which by the way is why it was launched on the same day that Herman Cain died, as in Cain and Abel in the Bible. And Herman Cain announced his presidency on his birthday. Cain was the first man born. And on that same day that the Perseverance probe was launched with Ingenuity on July 30th, 2020, was the same day that was the recording or release of Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen's collaboration on their podcast named Born in the USA, which is a play used by gods playing on the fact that Obama wasn't born in the USA because he's the Antichrist. All right. So anyway, perseverance of the saints is this phrase in the Bible, from the Bible, that is speaking of overcoming this mark of the Antichrist, which, as I'm explaining here, will facilitate demonic possession. Okay, so the helicopter and Perseverance first landed in the river delta on Mars. Okay, that's delta. It's all about how it landed in the delta. The probe and Ingenuity have been exploring the river delta. The mission of this Perseverance probe is to explore the river delta to seek evidence of life, because it's theorized that there could be evidence of this in the river delta, because this is where water ran on the surface of Mars. So in other words, what I'm saying is that this isn't inconsequential in regards to Ingenuity and Perseverance, the fact that it's in the river delta. The mission is all about the river delta. Okay? And as I explained in the Mars copter video, Mars, the red planet, and helicopters in God's signs are symbolic of the red dragon, because God is using helicopters for their tails. And in Revelation chapter 12, the red dragon is, the tail of the dragon is focused upon, and the red dragon is a metaphor for Satan. Okay. So for a long time, it was making its way, as in the Ingenuity helicopter, back to the delta. Okay, so it left the delta and then was returning back, making slowly its way back to the delta. Took a long time. It was a big part of the story, in other words, regarding the Ingenuity helicopter. As the diagram shows, this connects with 555 weeks to the day that Obama and the UK Prime Minister attended a March Madness, as in the coming demonic possession madness, upset win by the Mississippi Delta Devils. Now, I have known for quite a while that this Delta Devils prophetic sign was pointing to delta brainwaves, okay? But it's just my memory, all of this has come to the fore again, and that's led to this current insight that I'm explaining in this video. And Barack Obama is the basketball president, and there's many other connections regarding the stay that he whisked the UK Prime Minister upon his landing in Washington to a college basketball game. Quite a thing to do with a visiting Prime Minister of a very important country, to laugh it up at a college basketball game. However, that's Barack Obama for you. This is because the Lord is pointing to delta brainwaves that will induce demonic possession through 5G frequencies. That's the reason for the 555 weeks connection to the flight on Mars of Ingenuity on Sol 550, when it flew for 55 seconds, the first of 3 flights that were in a row in which the copter flew for 55 seconds, and on and on. So it's all hinting at 5G frequencies, okay? Now, the movie Delta Force, starring Chuck Norris, because God, through his big picture of signs, incorporates everything. And I figure that's somewhat egalitarian, if you will, in that there's a sign for everyone. He touches upon every aspect of culture, if you will. And here we have, Chuck Norris, which brings in, for example, martial arts, and Chuck Norris himself in his movie career, which was very big in the 1980s, right? So anyway, this movie stars Chuck Norris and is about terrorism on a flight. This prediction being made is Kamala Harris's flight crashing. In the Middle East, this involves Israel, and this hints at Bible prophecy and the Antichrist persecuting the Jews in Israel, and the Antichrist-led world that will seek to divide Israel and make Jerusalem an international city. Okay, the movie, this is astounding, which confirms everything, that it's prophetic. It cost $9 million and it made $17 million. And God pairs in his signs, to confirm his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, certain numbers together. Because this is how his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works in the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required, and this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which he would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9 and 17, because the Antichrist was president from 09 until 017, or 2017. But not only that, according to Wikipedia, it made 17.76 million. That's so amazing it's absurd. Because very infrequently and God uses movies big time in his signs for obvious reasons. It's easy for him to convey symbolism through the movie, through the actors, through the locations where they're filmed, through the dates they're released, etc. It's amazing. And a very good way for God to communicate things. So in other words, being a student of his big picture of signs and knowing he uses movies and having researched many, countless movies now that God has been using, I can tell you that it's not very often. In fact, I can't even remember an example where we have 2 decimal places after the amount of money that it made. Usually there's no decimal places. Sometimes there's a decimal place, but there's 2 here because it made 17.76. That's absurd because it's so obvious that it hints at 1776. It's like, it's kind of almost like comedy in a way because we know it's God's prerogative to partially hide himself to give the opportunity for people to choose him instead of him forcing him on people. That's the purpose of this life. That's why we're given free will to choose whether or not we want to be with him forever in heaven or not. And so that's why he hides himself partially for people to figure out the truth and love righteousness and hate unrighteousness. And but this is just so obvious that he's like almost giving it away. So anyway, it's a pairing of 9 and 17, but it's also a hint at 1776, which obviously symbolizes America, God's Gentile nation, for which the end-time judgment warning signs are for. People sometimes ask me, well, why are you so focused on America all the time? And the answer is because God is. God has not only been focused on America during his end-time signs, but he has been focused on America for centuries. It is his primary nation. And political correctness is not God's way. That's why the left hates God. He is the opposite of their political correctness. Okay, now, not only a pairing of 9 and 17 that points to Obama, who was president from 2009 until 2017, but it also hints at 1776, which, by the way, is 4 times 444, which hints at the Antichrist, the 44th president. And this is symbolism for America. The movie was released in the movie was released exactly 2009 weeks before Delta Brainwaves Day on August 16th, 2024. This is the date that God is pointing to regarding what you might call Aliens Day, Fifth Trumpet Day, Revelation 9/11 Day. It's the day when the demonic realm will collide with the earthly realm, as described in Revelation chapter 9, for example. And so there's so many things we could call it, but there will be a symbolic beginning to what is coming, which is the mass demonic possession. I'm not saying that on August 16th, everyone is going to become demonically possessed, but what I am saying is that it will be a symbolic beginning to whatever is coming. And that may be, and I think it may likely be, the day that Pope Francis announces that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world, thus giving him authority over the world's governments instantly. And so we have this exact 2009 weeks connection, but what makes this relevant is not only that the Antichrist became the president in 2009, but it's confirmed with the second witnesses that I just mentioned. because of the dollar amounts, the amounts that it cost and made. It hints at 2009 and 2017, this movie. And that's why it's doubly relevant that there is this 2009 weeks connection to the beginning of another title you could give to August 16th is the beginning of the Antichrist kingdom. All right, it was recognized prior to August 16th that it would only be a step in the trail of signs that is leading to what I am talking about, which will occur on June 9th. August 16th. June 9th will be Revelation 11 Day, Aliens Day, etc. And August 16th ended up being a step in the trail, and one of the things that occurred on this day, one of the prophetic signs, was the release of the new Aliens movie, which did very well, and I'm sure there's prophetic numbers in there, more than likely. But the Aliens movie was released on this day, and other things happened on this day, and I'm not going to get into it in this video. Okay. Now it is finally clearer the significance of Paul Simon's song Graceland. Before development of titles that did not occur until the 18th century, works of literature were referred to by their first line of the work, which is called an incipit. And by the way, God has used the most famous incipit of history. It was a dark and stormy night to describe the unprecedented 700,000 lightning strikes in 12 hours on July 1st, 2021, which is another story which we won't get into. I'm just saying that this isn't the only example. There's a second witness of even God using an incipit before. This is why I know what an incipit is. I didn't know that before that particular sign. The lightning was also part of the fire that destroyed the historic town Lytton in British Columbia, and that town is named after Edward Lytton, the British politician who is famous for being an author and the most famous incipit in history. It was a dark and stormy night. That's why Lytton burned. It pointed to Edward Lytton, and it was a dark and stormy night. Okay, so anyway, this incipit, the first line of the song Graceland, okay, the first lyric in the song Graceland is, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar." Memphis, Graceland, Little Egypt, and by the way, I'm writing to people that already know what I'm talking about, some friends here. But Memphis, Graceland, Little Egypt, the eclipses, Cairo, Illinois, which Obama delivered a speech in as the senator from Illinois, the U.S. senator, and the first incipit, the first line in Isaiah chapter 31 is, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt," which is why Barack Obama, as soon as he became president, the first thing he did was went to Cairo, Egypt. He went down to Egypt to deliver his famous speech to the Muslim world, in which he said that America is no longer a Christian nation because he is the Antichrist. By the way, that was exactly 3,000 days before the eclipse that went over Cairo, Illinois in 2017, and 3,000 because the Israelites escaped Egypt, and then at Mount Sinai, their rebellion resulted in 3,000 being slaughtered and perished. It was quote unquote about 3,000, which is why about 3,000 died on 9/11. It was 2,996. It was judgment for America's rebellion. Okay, so Memphis, and God is using Memphis in his signs, Graceland. There's so much to say about all of this. The palace, the king of rock and roll's palace in Graceland, mansion, is symbolic of the king's palace in Egypt, and Memphis, Tennessee is named after Memphis, Egypt, and on and on. And the eclipses traversed over the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt because Egypt and the king of Egypt in the Bible is symbolic of the Antichrist. And the eclipses engendered an X with their crossing over each other. The paths of these two eclipses engendered an X over the nation, and that's because an X is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, which changes a person's chromosomes, which an X resembles. And X's are two straight lines that cross each other at their midpoints, and that's why the middle date of the two eclipses was December 14th, 2020, the first date that an American took the thing outside of a trial, and the thing is the mark of the Antichrist. And that proves it, by the way. Okay, so Memphis and Martin Luther King got shot outside of the Graceland estate, just north and just west of the estate, just like the King of the Jews was crucified just outside of the Temple Mount complex, just north and just west of it, and so on and on. And Martin Luther King was shot, and shots are symbolism for the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist. Things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people. Okay, and all of that is leading to the demonic possession, which will be facilitated by delta brainwave patterns. Okay, and so the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. And ancient Egypt was itself a civilization situated on the Nile River Delta. So this is why. The eclipses point, a lot of people know this, the eclipses point to the area named Little Egypt. But what's really going on here, and by the way, Memphis, Tennessee is connected to Chicago and St. Louis with the I-55, which hints at the 5G frequencies that are what is being spoken of in the fifth trumpet in Revelation chapter 9. And what people don't realize, though, is that this is the epiphany here, is that it's also pointing to the river delta, the Mississippi River Delta. Oh, and by the way, the reason why this occurred to me this morning, this Paul Simon song referring to the delta brainwaves, is that when I woke up this morning, the thought that occurred to me is how America will be divided geographically with a catastrophic continent reshaping earthquake focused from the seismic hot zone that is in Little Egypt that will separate the nation into two with a waterway stretching from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi River Delta. And that'll be a result, a consequence, a judgment for America led by the Antichrist seeking to divide Israel. Instead of dividing Israel, God is going to divide America. And that will be a testament in the 1,000 years of peace in the Messianic age of what God did to America, his Gentile nation, when it rebelled against him and came up against Israel. It'll be this long-lasting testament. People, generations after generations from now, will be talking about why it is that the continent of America has been divided into two with this waterway from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. Okay? So that's what got me thinking about it. And then I realized, wait a second, the first line in the song of Paul Simon's Graceland is the Mississippi Delta. And sure enough, the song, like I'm explaining, it's so amazing. Hang in there. This is going to get so exponentially more amazing. Is pointing to delta brainwaves. His song. Now, the name Paul Simon is equal to 500 in Hebrew gematria. G500 is in Strong's Greek concordance is the word Antichrist. Okay, so here we have, in other words, Paul Simon symbolizing the Antichrist. Not that he is like an Antichrist figure. You have to be thinking in more of abstract terms in order to understand God's symbolism in his signs. It's just symbolism. Anyway, the name Paul Simon is equal to 500, and that's the word for Antichrist. The word delta is 130 in Hebrew gematria. And by the way, Paul Simon is Jewish, so more reason for his name equaling in Hebrew gematria 500. Delta is also equal to 252 in English gematria, and that's relevant because the period of the Antichrist is symbolized with the number 2520 from Daniel chapter 9. Delta is equal to 42 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. The number 42 in the Bible always appears in context of slaughter, the boys that were slaughtered by the she-bear, the men that were slaughtered at the pit by Jehu and his men, the 42 cities, the 42 men, by the way, and 42 cities that were reserved for people that had committed manslaughter to take refuge in. And in context of the Antichrist will be leading a slaughter. And in the book of Revelation, the number 42 appears in this context with the Antichrist. So, okay. Now, 13 is symbolic of America. America was founded on 13 colonies. And these colonies in themselves are symbolic of the 13 tribes of Israel, because the land of Israel was divided into 12 areas, and really 13. And these areas of ancient Israel that were divided are symbolic of the areas of the colonies, which became states. Okay, and there are 13 tribes of Israel because Joseph was replaced by Ephraim and Manasseh, his two sons, making 13 tribes. And the younger one, Manasseh, was demonstrated by God in the Bible to be the one to receive the inheritance, even though he was the younger one. This is symbolic of Ephraim symbolizing the UK and its offspring nations, Canada, Australia, and the younger Manasseh being America, the younger sibling that received the inheritance. Okay, because the UK was set aside by God, but then God furthered the inheritance into America. Okay, now, what do I mean by that? Well, the UK is an island. It was separated from the rest of Europe by God in order to develop its unique culture that birthed America and modern democracy and on for God's purposes. The nations that spread the gospel around the world in the 19th and 20th centuries were the English-speaking countries for God's purpose here. But now that that's happened, these countries have rejected God, and not only that, are in extreme rebellion against God, and now they must be destroyed. And that's what's happening right now. God is in the process of destroying these nations that deserve to be destroyed. These nations, God's judgment is commensurate with the amount of light a nation has received. And these nations were extremely blessed, and that's why God is primarily focused on these nations in his end times judgment. The end times judgment is also for the other European nations, especially the Western European nations, and for the whole world, but in that order. Top of the order is America. Okay, and Australia and Canada and the UK. Okay, so Simon. Now, so what I was saying though is that the word delta is equal to 130, and the number 13 is symbolic of America and its 13 colonies. Paul Simon wrote and sang the songs America and American Tune. In other words, Paul Simon is also symbolic of America because of his famous hits America and American Tune. 130 hints at 13. And by the way, the number 13 in the Bible is also symbolic of the Antichrist. The Graceland estate is symbolic of the White House. For example, both mansions have white colonnades at their entrances. Okay, so the Graceland estate is symbolic of the White House in terms of prophetic significance here. The song Graceland is about Paul Simon's experience traveling to the Graceland mansion. Okay? Now, Paul Simon, G500 and Antichrist, sang Graceland with its incipit, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar." Okay, I was leading up to something here, but it turns out it's not correct. What I have said so far in this paragraph is correct. Paul Simon is symbolism for America, and the number 13 is likewise used in context of Paul Simon, and It symbolizes America, as I just explained. Paul Simon sang, "The Mississippi Delta is shining like a national guitar." This first lyric in the song Graceland, he sang it in the White House to Joe Biden and the Prime Minister of Japan. It was a state dinner for the Prime Minister of Japan. Now, the Prime Minister of Japan, because God is using Japan for symbolism for three different things, and one of those three things is Japan or Japanese animation, which is obsessed with possession and demonic possession. I mean, this really is the genre of Japanese animation. It is largely about spirits possessing people. So that's why God uses this, and this is appropriate given the subject of this video, and the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar, as I am in the process of explaining here. Now, that day was April 10th, and that day connects to August 4th. What is amazing here is that the date August 10th is written outside of the US as 10/4, and the date October 4th. Okay, so if I said August 4th, I apologize. It's October 4th is Fallen Angels Day, if you will. Demonic mass, symbolic beginning to the mass demonic possession, Revelation 9:11, demons pretending to be aliens, etc., etc. The demonic realm colliding with the earthly realm, a symbolic beginning of it. I'm not saying these things are going to happen on this day. So that's predicted to be October 4th, 10/4. And the reason for that, by the way, God is pointing to Revelation chapter 10, verse 4, and the seven thunders. So you could also call this day Seven Thunders Day. Well, anyway, Paul Simon sang to the Japanese Prime Minister because, again, this is symbolic of Japanese animation, which is obsessed with demonic possession, on April 10th. And outside the US, April 10th is written as 10/4, which hints at October 4th. All right, I have to interrupt again. What I was just saying was recorded in September and before October 4th, and October 4th ended up being another step in the trail of signs to this Revelation 9:11, Seven Thunders, Aliens Day, right? And all of the analysis was correct. There's way more analysis than what I just explained. And it was all correct, and the sign that confirmed all of the analysis to be correct was the Antichrist, the 44th president, in Pittsburgh. It was announced on this day that he would be going to Pittsburgh. So this was the day it was announced for the first time that he would join the Harris campaign. So it was a major development regarding Obama, the Antichrist. And it was announced that his first stop would be Pittsburgh. I think it was just a few days after that. Anyway, Pittsburgh, God had already demonstrated in July to be symbolic of the pit in Revelation chapter 9, from which the fallen angels, the demons, emerge, including King Apollyon, who is mentioned in Revelation 9:11, for example. So it is from the bottomless pit. That's the reason for this Pittsburgh symbolism. And when we look back, it makes a lot of sense. Over the years, the Pittsburgh Steelers signs, it all fits together with this new understanding regarding Pittsburgh. And that's why, for example, on 9/11, speaking of Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon from the bottomless pit, on 9/11 in 2001, the plane with 44 passengers crashed just outside of Pittsburgh. In fact, all of the mainstream news stories about this Flight 93 mention how it was 80 miles outside of Pittsburgh, and 80 is 40 plus 40, which hints at the 44th president also. The flight was actually hijacked directly over Cleveland, because that's also prophetic, and that hints at the number 23 because of President Grover Cleveland having been the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, having skipped the 23rd presidency, just like how Barack Obama will serve non-consecutive terms as well. And Obama is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. And in God's signs, he pairs 23 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. Because of this, the 44th president wearing number 23, which is why the 44-passenger plane crashed 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh after having been hijacked over Cleveland, which hints at 23. Also, historically, Cleveland is nicknamed the sixth city. It goes back to a time when Cleveland was the sixth biggest city in the U.S. It has this nickname. I'm not making this up. And 6 is 2 times 3, which hints at 23. Okay, so God was pointing to October 4th. And therefore, all of the analysis that I'm about to explain regarding October 4th is 100% correct. October 4th, regarding Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is also symbolic, her death in a plane crash will also be symbolic of all of this theme we are talking about. Fallen angels, because her flight will be on her way to Los Angeles. And Los Angeles in God's signs is being used to hint at fallen angels. And furthermore, she will fall from the sky on her way to Los Angeles, which hints at fallen angels. She will be on her way home to her $5 million mansion. That's the news story regarding her mansion, which is near the I-5 highway. And she will crash near the I-55 highway that connects St. Louis to Chicago, the home of the Antichrist. And that's all further confirmation of what we were talking about also, because this Revelation 9/11 day is fifth trumpet day. This emergence of demons from the bottomless pit and the description of King Apollyon in Revelation 9/11 is part of the fifth trumpet judgment. And it is through 5G frequencies that delta brain waves will be triggered, which will facilitate mass demonic possession. That's the amazing thing here. So that's also why, so that's why she'll crash near the I-55. It will hint at that. Also, in the Bible, the most wicked, evil king, according to the Bible, in Israel's history, ruled for 55 years. And St. Louis is near the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt, which hints at Egypt in the Bible, where the king of Egypt persecuted God's people. The king of Egypt in the Bible is symbolism, or rather a type, for Satan and the Antichrist. St. Louis, with the I-55, connects to Memphis, Tennessee, which is where the king of rock had his mansion, the Graceland Mansion, which is what we are talking about in this video here. Also, St. Louis is historically known for being a center for blues music. Blues is music, and music is frequencies in the air. And there is a phrase in the Bible that describes Satan as being the prince of the power of the air. That's why 5G frequencies in the air will be used to trigger mass demonic possession with the delta brainwaves. And that's why we have these connections to music here with Paul Simon and his song, The Graceland, with the opening lyric being, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar." Also, the hockey team from St. Louis in the NHL is named the St. Louis Blues, named after the arguably most famous first big pop, or rather popular, blues hit, St. Louis Blues. That's the name of the song. Regarding Kamala Harris's plane crash and this trail of signs that leads to October 4th, again, her plane crash will be symbolic of this theme of fallen angels, as I just explained. November 27th, the date of her predicted crash in St. Louis, will be 1 month and 23 days after October 4th. 1 month and 23 days hints at the number 123. 123 is the 42nd semi-prime number. In the Bible, the number 42 is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist, and in every instance, the number 42 in the Bible occurs in context of slaughter. And that's what we are talking about here, this coming slaughter and the mass demonic possession. Okay, but also 123 is 3 times 41. And that's the big confirmation that this is relevant, because Kamala Harris will die in the area code, or rather the city with the area code 314. That's very prophetic, because it's also predicted that she will die in a plane crash into Busch Stadium, the baseball stadium where the St. Louis Cardinals play. Cardinals are a type of bird. Her crash is predicted to be caused by a bird strike. It's predicted that her plane will crash into center field of this baseball stadium because Paul Simon sang in center field Mrs. Robinson after Joe DiMaggio died, because of the lyric in the song Mrs. Robinson about Joe DiMaggio, and Kamala Harris will be replaced by Michelle Robinson Obama. Also, in one of Paul Simon's more important songs, in other words, the first song released from his 4+4th album, the chorus has a lyric, "The cross in the ballpark," hinting at an X marks the spot for Kamala Harris's death in center field, but also, of course, the cross is a symbol for Christ. And Paul Simon is known for being an avid baseball fan, for that matter, and all of the Paul Simon videos explain more about what I'm talking about here in this connection. But her plane crash into Busch Stadium in the area code 314, I should say her fiery plane crash into Busch Stadium in the area code 314 will point to Exodus 3:14 and God telling Moses from the burning bush his name. He said his name is I am. The symbol for I am in Hebrew, the het symbol, is the exact same symbol as the symbol for pi, which is 3.14, and the name for God is in Exodus 3:14. So that's why, anyway, the connection between the announcement that Obama would join Harris on her campaign, because this is about Harris and her plane crash, the announcement that she would join the campaign for Harris on October 4th, and that his first place where he would be Pittsburgh, connects with this 314 symbolism, 3 times 41, to the date it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. Not 3 times 41 days, but 1 month and 23 days and 123 is 3 times 41. But we already confirmed the significance of 123 because it is also the 42nd semi-prime number. All right, now going forward, don't be confused. Know that I made this video in a few different sittings. Today is, it's in November, and this next part that you'll be listening to for a few minutes, just a few minutes, was recorded in September, and then the original video was recorded in July. So don't be confused. I will talk about October 4th now a little bit. Again, it's a step in the trail, as I've just now explained. And I'm about to explain more about the interval of days between when Paul Simon sang at the White House on the date 410 and this date in the Trail of Signs for Revelation 9/11 day, Aliens Day, Mass Demonic Possession Day, symbolic beginning of all of these things. It's not going to be like everyone's going to become mass demonically possessed on the day, but the beginning symbolic day was a step in the trail for that. It was October 4th, and that's written as 410 outside of the US, which again is the date that Paul Simon sang at the White House to the Japanese Prime Minister. And again, Japan is symbolism for what we are talking about, which is mass demonic possession because of Japanese animation. And so anyway, I'm going to talk about the interval of days, 177 days, and then I'll just continue with the rest of this video. Well, these 2 days are 177 days apart. That's prophetic because, well, for one thing, this is the number of days in between lunar eclipses and a blood moon tetrad. But 177 is 59 plus 59 plus 59. And 59, well, God repeats a number 3 times often for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And 59 is the 7th superprime number. And so 59 plus 59 plus 59 is symbolically a 3 sets of 7, which God frequently uses in his signs to communicate judgment because the Israelites marched around the walls of security. Well, they enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7 before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. There are also 3 sets of 7 in the book of Genesis in the flood account. So 3 sets of 7 is symbolic of judgment. Okay, so that's 59 plus 59 plus 59, but also it was Joe Biden that hosted the Japanese Prime Minister and invited Paul Simon, knowing, by the way, that the Prime Minister of Japan is a fan of Paul Simon. And Joe Biden got into the White House. This was at the White House. It was a White House state dinner. Joe Biden got into the White House through the shoplifted referendum, the 59th one. The 59th presidential shoplifted referendum. Okay, also, Kamala Harris will die at the age of 59, and she will be flying back to Los Angeles, which God uses to hint at fallen angels, which is, again, an allusion to Revelation chapter 9 and also Seven Thunders Day. Now, this movie, Delta Force, that I was speaking about, it was released exactly 2016 weeks before Seven Thunders Day on October 4th. Okay, so the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar, connects to October 4th, as I just explained. And so does the release date of the movie Delta Force, with exactly 2016 weeks. Well, that hints at the number 216. And 216 is 6 times 6 times 6, which is why, for example, the Antichrist Barack Obama was born on the 216th day of the calendar year. And so there you have these 2 delta signs connecting to October 4th. What further confirms this is that the movie Delta Force was released in the same year that the Graceland album was released, 1986. They were released 191 days intraday count apart. There was 191 days in between the release dates of this album and this movie, and God uses the number 191 to hint at 9/11 and Revelation 9/11 in his signs in general. This is also 3 times 64 days. Now, again, God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And the 44th president is the Antichrist. And 64 is 4 times 4 times 4. And so in other words, these two, and we're talking about the White House here, these two, this movie and this album were released 4 times 4 times 4 plus 4 times 4 times 4 plus 4 times 4 times 4 days apart. Also, the song Graceland, about Simon's travel to the Graceland mansion, is ultimately symbolism for the White House. For one symbolism, it's also symbolism for the temple on the Temple Mount. And the White House is made up of 132 rooms, which is 44 plus 44 plus 44. And again, Simon sang Graceland on the prophetic date this year at the White House. The movie The Shining takes place in Colorado. It's all about Colorado. I mean, it's not all about Colorado, but the entire, well, actually, that's not even true. There is a couple of scenes that take place in Florida. So anyway, the movie is about Colorado, though, okay? And Stephen King was inspired to write The Shining after staying at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. By the way, one of the most amazing videos ever on this channel is the video I titled The Shining. There's a big story here. I'm not even getting into it. You need to watch that other video, The Shining video on this channel. Okay, make sure you watch that video. The movie The Shining is about powers of the brain, telepathy, and demonic possession. The coming demonic possession will be facilitated by delta brainwaves. The mass demonic possession will lead to genocidal slaughter. The first lyrics of Graceland is, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar." The shining hints at how the Delta was shining, the Mississippi Delta, like a national symbol. It is. In God's signs, God is saying that the Mississippi Delta is a national symbol. And it's symbolic in his signs of this coming judgment. Like I just explained, the nation is going to be divided by a waterway from the Mississippi Delta to the Great Lakes. And God is using this Mississippi Delta theme and Little Egypt of the nation because of Egypt being symbolic of the Antichrist and Antichrist system in the Bible. And the nation is going to be destroyed and judged through the Antichrist, who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist, which will facilitate delta brainwaves that will activate the mark of the Antichrist and trigger demonic possession. I hope the gravity of what I'm saying is being appreciated. The Shining hints at how the Delta was shining like a national guitar because the Mississippi Delta is the national symbol here that God is using to judge and destroy America with. This is the reason why Shelley Duvall, who starred in The Shining, died 36 days before delta brainwaves shining day. 36 is equal to 600, well, it hints at 666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. 36 is 3 sixes, or it hints at 3 sixes, also 6 times 6, but also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 is equal to 666. As explained in the video about the Shining prophecy, which I said is a must-watch, Duval's death pointed to the genocidal slaughter of Jews with the final solution. To explain that means you need to watch the video. Okay? It points to the Wannsee Conference, and the movie is about the hotel, which points to the location where the Wannsee Conference was held, which is where the final solution was formalized. But not only that, though, as many people believe, and I believe for a very good reason, it is believed that Stanley Kubrick, through the imagery in the movie, was hinting at the origin of the hotel's possession. The hotel itself is an entity in the movie that's demonically possessed, but it's alluded to through all kinds of means in the movie in Stanley Kubrick fashion, that it's hinting at the genocide and slaughter of the Native Americans, and also the slaughter of the buffalo. And as explained in the helicopter video, that's very relevant. So hopefully you watched the helicopter video before watching this one. You'll see how the slaughter of the buffalo is hinting at the slaughter of those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. And it also hints at cattle branding, which is why it's the mark of the Antichrist. But anyway, watch the helicopter video. But returning back to the movie The Shining and the death of Shelley Duvall, okay, who starred in The Shining, she died 36 days before Genocide Day, Delta Brainwaves Day. And again, that hints at 666, okay? All right, I already explained how August 16th was a step, and this was the day of the release of the Aliens movie. Paul Simon got up in front of those attending the state dinner at the White House on April 10th, 2024, and the first lyric he sang was, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar." The state dinner was in honor of the visiting Prime Minister of Japan. Japanese culture is known for its anime, and Japanese anime is known for the theme of spirits possessing people. I mean, literally. The whole genre is filled with spirits, foreign entities possessing people. Demonic possession. That's literally what Japanese animation is known for. It's a recurring theme. So in other words, in God's Signs, Japan is symbolism for this, and that's why it was the visiting Japanese Prime Minister at this state dinner in which Paul Simon sang, "The Mississippi Delta is shining like a national guitar." Furthermore, the reason why Paul Simon was chosen by, I believe, Jill Biden is because Jill knew that the Prime Minister of Japan was a big Paul Simon fan. So that's more confirmation here of the connection between Delta and shining and demonic possession, because that's what Japan symbolizes in God's Signs. This isn't by far the only example. There's even a connection to all of this with the most iconic Japanese animation movie, but I forget the connection. It's profound. I think it's, I don't even want to say. Let me just look it up. Yes, I had to refresh my memory here. Okay, the most iconic movie in the whole entire genre of Japanese animation is the movie Akira. Akira is regarded in the subculture as being the most symbolic movie of the genre, the most important movie of the genre. And this movie was released on, let's see, I think it was July 16th, Yes, July 16th, 1988. July 16th, 1988 is exactly 1,880 weeks before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. Her death in a plane crash will be a step in the trail of signs that is leading to demonic possession day. And that will be 9 plus 11 days later, which hints at Revelation 9:11, which is the verse that symbolizes this. On August 16th. Now, August 16th, 2024 is exactly 433 months after the release of the Akira movie. 433 is the 84th prime number. And that is astounding beyond words because the name Obama in Hebrew gematria is equal to 84. Also, Obama was born on the date 8/4, August 4th, which is the 216th day of the calendar year, and 216 is 6 times 6 times 6. Also, 84 hints at 48, and Obama is predicted to be the 48th president after it is predicted that Michelle Obama will become the 47th president, after it is predicted that Joe Biden will step down, after it is predicted that he will nominate or appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president, after it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash. Okay, so Akira connects profoundly to both dates. July 27th, when Kamala Harris dies in a plane crash, will symbolize Prince of the Power of the Air, Ephesians 2:2, which is the description for Satan. And that's what 5G frequencies are. They are frequencies in the air that will facilitate the demonic possession. Music is also frequencies in the air. That's what music is. So the reason why 1,880 weeks exactly, I didn't finish that. This is profound beyond words. Okay, this is one of the first discoveries I made to confirm July 27th. 1,880 weeks exactly between the release of Akira and the date it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, which will be Prince of the Power of the Air symbolism, 9 plus 11 days before Prince of the Power of the Air day. Okay, so anyway, so Revelation 9:11. Okay, so 1,880 weeks because 188 is a number that God frequently uses in his signs in context of this. H188 in the Bible, in the Strong's Hebrew Concordance, is the word that means woe exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. And that's what 1,880 weeks hints at. It's a big woe. And again, Akira and Japanese animation is about demonic possession, which we have this woe connection to the day it is predicted that there will be a big woe when Kamala Harris is predicted to die in a plane crash, which will be 9 plus 11 days before the big woe day, the symbolic beginning of the demonic possession. I just made here inside this video the Akira video. Yeah, okay. So back to what we were talking about though. We were talking about Japan. Let's just begin from the beginning here because this is so profound it's worthwhile reviewing here. Paul Simon got up in front of those attending the state dinner at the White House on April 10th, 2024, and the first lyric he sang was, the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. The state dinner was in honor of the visiting Prime Minister of Japan. Japanese culture is known for its anime, and Japanese anime is known for the theme of spirits possessing people. Simon sang the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar 128 days before Delta Brainwaves shining mass demonic possession day on August 16th, 2024. G128 in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word the Ethiopian, which points to Obama, who was born in East Africa, returning to the White House. Okay? So again, from the day that he sang at the White House, it is 128 days to the day that Obama will return to the White House as the vice president. No, sorry. It's 130 days. I already explained that. It's 128 days to the day of shining day, Delta brainwaves day. Hence, Mississippi Delta was shining. Okay, and the reason why 128 days is relevant is because of it pointing to Obama, the Ethiopian. The reason why that's relevant is because Obama was born in East Africa, and God is using this from the Bible to point to this, the Ethiopian. But it's Obama returning to the White House, and in the Bible, the Ethiopian was returning to Egypt. And Egypt is the civilization situated on the Nile River Delta, which, by the way, connects to Ethiopia, the Nile River. Okay, so in the book of Acts, in the Bible, the Ethiopian was returning to Egypt, as in returning to the White House, Obama, the civilization on the Nile River Delta. The date on which Simon sang the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar was April 10th. April 10th was 6 weeks and 6 days, which hints at 666, the Antichrist, or exactly 9 plus 9 plus 9 weeks, and the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment, after the FEMA emergency alert test on the date 10-4, which is the inverse of 410. The dates 410 and 10-4 hint at the 7 thunders in Revelation 10:4. This connection is also 188 days, which I just explained the relevance of this number 188, whoa, exclamation mark, in between count. And this hints at H188, whoa, exclamation mark. John, who wrote the book of Revelation, was told not to write about the 7 thunders that he saw, as this knowledge would be revealed at the time of the end. And this knowledge is now being revealed at the time of the end with this information in this video, which will be confirmed through the prediction, which hopefully will make this video go viral, which means that one should know that you need to share this video. It is a massive bag of gold, and Jesus warned Christians that did nothing with their bag of gold that they would be banished to hell. Okay, and the coming FEMA camps for the dissidents are also part of the coming genocide and the mass demonic possession. That's why, okay, and so the 7 thunders is what I'm saying. One of the 7 thunders is mass demonic possession induced by delta brainwaves that will be triggered by 5G frequencies through the self-assembling components contained in the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist. In its current form, it does not need an additional technology to go with it, such as, or a false form of religious worship, such as, okay, and also it does not need a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why most quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is that it is judgment from God for this particular doctrine of dispensationalism. Okay, this is why Simon sang at the White House, the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar 13 weeks and 1 day before the death of the actress in The Shining, a movie about bloody murder and genocidal slaughter. Furthermore, Paul Simon and Shelley Duvall were in a relationship and lived together for 2 years. 13 weeks and 1 day hints at G131 in Strong's Greek Concordance, which means blood disease, which is the result, what people get when they take the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist. And by the way, the commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of why this thing cannot be the mark of the Antichrist are answered in at the end of the must-watch snakebite video. But make no mistake, when the prediction in this video comes to pass, it will prove that these commonly held objections are not correct. That's the purpose of this prediction that is from God. And to be clear, I know far more than you the reason for, purpose of this prediction that is from God. And it is to prove what I am saying. It is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It does not need an additional something. Okay, so back to what I was saying. We have the seven thunders here being pointed to with Paul Simon because he's saying on the date that hints at that. Now, he sang at the White House 13 weeks and 1 day before the death of the actress that played in The Shining, and Paul Simon dated this actress and lived with her for 2 years. The distance of time between Paul Simon singing at the White House about a shining national guitar and the death of the actress from the movie The Shining is 13 weeks and 1 day. This hints at G131, which God uses in his signs to hint at the thing that people get when they take the mark of the Antichrist. Furthermore, by the way, 131 is the 32nd prime number, and 32 is the equivalent in simple English gematria of the name Obama, the Antichrist. Also, Obama will, like the 32nd president, be the only president other than the 32nd president to serve more than 2 terms. And 32 is 4 times 8, and Obama is predicted to become the 48th president. Well, anyway, so that's more for the mark of the Antichrist symbolism here in the number 131 and G131, which hints at blood disease. And that's what one gets. And that's why this movie, The Shining, is about a bloody murder. There's the iconic scene in which the hallway of the hotel is flooded with blood that comes out of the doors of the elevator, for example. But as again I mentioned that the movie is a hint at the slaughter, the genocidal slaughter of the buffalo and the Native Americans. Now, okay. In Ephesians 2:2, it says that Satan is, quote, the prince of the power of the air, unquote. The Shining is about telepathic powers that travel through the air. Music is frequencies that travel through the air. Again, we're talking about Paul Simon singing with music, connecting to the death of the actress that played in The Shining, which is about telepathic powers of the air, and so is music. Hence the prince of the power of the air symbolism here. The coming mass demonic possession will be facilitated by 5G frequencies in the air. These 5G frequencies in the air will affect people through the self-assembling components that are in there, begins with a blah, ends with an ud. This is why Simon sang, the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar, 13 weeks and 1 day, before the death of the actress of The Shining. Simon's song about Graceland is about his experience traveling to Elvis's Graceland estate. This connection between Simon's singing Graceland at the White House and the death of the actress from The Shining is also the reason why the king of rock music's Graceland estate is known for providing tours of Elvis's Lisa Marie airplane. Music and airplane travel are symbolic of the prince of the power of the air. Elvis's Lisa Marie plane traveled through the air on its way back to Graceland on February 22nd, 1984, exactly 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days after the death of the king of rock music. Okay, so it all ties together here, right? And by the way, Elvis was responsible for the popularity of the Thing industry. When he took the Thing, when he performed at the Ed Sullivan show in the 1950s, this was the thing that got the baby boomer generation to accept taking things. In other words, a big part of the thing history is Elvis. And God has been telling this story through his signs. I could go on, but make sure you watch the Taylor Swift video, the Super Bowl video, when her boyfriend Travis Kelce, after winning on stage, said "Viva Las Vegas" twice. It's an amazing video. Make sure you watch the Swift Super Bowl video. So again, what I am saying here is that Paul Simon's song about Graceland is about his experience traveling to Graceland. And he is a musician, and it is a song, and songs and music are frequencies in the air. And Graceland is about Elvis, and so the first lyric is the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar, and I have explained how that is pointing to the thing that will induce demonic possession. But also Elvis himself, and therefore through his estate, Graceland, is also symbolic of the thing. Because of the history of him taking the thing in front of the press to promote the thing before he was on the Ed Sullivan Show. And if it weren't for that event, the thing industry the history of the thing would be entirely different. Who knows? Because it was a very consequential moment for the thing industry, which is a farce. It's a lie. So it's not really based on truth. It's not like it's a thing that's, anyway. Well, so who knows what history would have been had Elvis not taken the thing. For the young influential or easily influenced baby boomer generation at that age by their hero Elvis, right? Okay. Now, Paul Simon and Shelley Duvall together attended a black tie dinner for Jimmy Carter in 1976. And Paul Simon performed at Carter's pre-inaugural ball. I explained the prophetic significance of this in the Paul Simon Jimmy Carter video, which you should also watch. It's an amazing video also. Okay, so this confirms the prophetic significance of the connection between Simon's performance at the White House and April 10th, on April 10th, 2024, and the death of Shelley Duvall on July 11th, 2024. Okay? Not only were they in a relationship together, but they are part of Jimmy Carter, who was, of course, a president in the White House. They met together when they were dating each other, Jimmy Carter. And also when they were dating, Paul Simon is connected to Jimmy Carter because he performed for Carter at his pre-inaugural ball in the large auditorium the day before his inauguration. Okay. And the prophetic significance is very important, and it's explained in the Paul Simon videos. Okay? Now, this is actually turning out to be a Paul Simon video, which wasn't expected at the beginning of this day. Now, okay. So anyway, that's just more confirmation of the connection between when Paul Simon sang at the White House for a president, just like he sang for President Carter, and the death of Shelley Duvall, okay? Because they both were together at the other time Paul Simon sang for a president. You see that? That's amazing, right? Now, Simon and Duvall met during the filming of Woody Allen's Annie Hall, a movie that expressed the disaster in relationships as a result of the sexual liberation movement of Allen's and Simon's baby boomer generation. Okay, this was one of the big things that is responsible for the destruction of America. It's the breakdown of the genders, the breakdown of families, all due to the sexual liberation of women, because men have always been sexually liberated. It was the convincing of women that they have sexual libidos that are the same as men and their sexuality is the same as men, same sex drive. And it's, in other words, eliminated in a nutshell, it eliminated slut shaming and brainwashed women to think that they would be happy if they had lots of sex like men desire, which women don't. They don't desire lots of sex like men do. They have the opposite sex drive, in fact. But that's another story, and I actually went into it for quite a bit in another video, and I forget which video that is. But anyway, the wise person, in any case, when the prediction comes to pass, will recognize that they need to listen to every minute of every video. Now, so let's move on. But that's a big thing, though. That's what this movie Annie Hall is about. Okay, that's why it won 4 Academy Awards, Best Picture. Okay, what's this movie describing? It's describing people connected with this movie because it's describing the new dating scene in the 1970s after the sexual liberation, the trauma that baby boomers were going through in their lives with their breakups and their divorces, etc. Okay? So anyway, that's why this movie connected with people, and that's why this is an important movie. It's why it was registered in the National Film Registry for a culturally significant movie. It's regarded as Woody Allen's best movie, all right? So, in other words, like I said earlier, God brings in every part of culture you can probably think of into his science, and now he's just brought in Woody Allen, all right, in his movies. Okay, now, so this is considered to be Woody Allen's finest movie. It cost $4 million and made $44 million. That immediately is like a big giveaway that this is a big prophetic important sign, because obviously it hints at the 44th president, the Antichrist. Just like I mentioned earlier, the other movie and its dollar amount was a giveaway. That's definitely important. Now, this movie was released on the 110th day of the year, April 20th, in 1977, and this was exactly 381 months before the inauguration of the 44th president. Okay, the movie that made $44 million was released exactly 381 months before the inauguration of the 44th president. 381 is the 119th semi-prime number, which hints at 9/11 in 2001, when 110 stories, hence the release date on the 110th day of the year, of the Twin Towers collapsed. This also hints at Revelation 9/11 Day, which is also Seven Thunders Day. This day that will be the beginning, symbolically, to the mass demonic possession, delta brainwaves shining, the national guitar shining in the Mississippi Delta, okay, as the Mississippi Delta. This 381 months is also 31 years and 9 months. And in his signs, God pairs 31 and 9 to point to the last verse of Isaiah chapter 31, which is verse 9, in which the Antichrist is defeated at the Lord's return. More than that, though, the incipit of Isaiah 31, as I mentioned earlier, the first line is, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt." And the Mississippi Delta, as I'm saying, is symbolic of the River Nile Delta in which the civilization Egypt existed, which is why in America we have Memphis, Tennessee, Cairo, Illinois, and the area nicknamed Little Egypt. Okay, and so that's why this is all relevant. In other words, also, Paul Simon's song about Graceland is about him traveling to Graceland down the highway. By the way, it's the I-55, which is at 5G frequencies and fifth trumpet. And he would have been traveling through the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. Okay, and this movie, as I'm about to mention, stars Paul Simon. Oh, I did mention it. That's how Simon and Duvall met. Okay, so the movie starring Paul Simon connects to the day of Obama's inauguration. And Simon sang at the inauguration of Carter. So there's another connection. Okay, but it connects to the inauguration of Obama through 9/11, Revelation 9/11 symbolism and Egypt symbolism, because it is 31 years and 9 months, which hints at Isaiah chapter 31, verse 9, the last verse in which the Antichrist is defeated at the Lord's return. The first verse beginning, woe to those who go down to Egypt, which, as I mentioned, is the thing that Obama did after he became president. In Annie Hall, Paul Simon's character's girlfriend is played by Laurie Bird, who was Art Garfunkel's girlfriend in real life between 1974 and 1979. When, in 1979, she committed suicide in Garfunkel's apartment. Revelation 9 informs us that people who will become demonically possessed through the delta brainwaves will seek death, but will not find it. Laurie Bird's suicide hints at this, because it's connected to these prophetic signs that point to Revelation chapter 9, and that's what's described in Revelation chapter 9. People will seek death, but they won't be able to die, because they will be demonically possessed. They will be like zombies, if you will, which is why in God's Signs he's incorporated all kinds of zombie movie symbolism. Okay? The name Laurie Bird hints at the predicted bird strike of Kamala Harris's airplane. It is through the death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash due to a bird strike, which will be symbolic of Prince of the Power of the Air, that the 44th president will become the president again and the Antichrist. This predicted bird strike will be Prince of the Power of the Air symbolism. God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. Annie Hall was released exactly 50 plus 50 plus 50 months after the birth of Kamala Harris. This is also 12 years and 6 months, which, by the way, hints at 5G frequencies and the 5th trumpet. This is also 12 years and 6 months but actually more than that. It hints at the I-55, which connects St. Louis to Chicago, which is the city that God uses in his signs to symbolize the Antichrist, who is from Chicago. And so that's also why the exact 50 plus 50 plus 50 months in between this movie, Annie Hall, its release, and the birth of Kamala Harris. And again, the movie Annie Hall connects with Laurie Bird, who died from suicide, and this connects to Kamala Harris and her death due to a bird strike. Okay, this 50 plus 50 plus 50 months exact connection is also 12 years and 6 months, which hints at the period of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy, which is symbolized by 1,260 days. Annie Hall was released exactly 22 years before the first mass school shooting in a high school in Columbine in the 38th state on April 20th, 1999. 22 years hints at Ephesians 2:2, and 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist in God's signs, because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in Ezekiel chapter 9, which would have been a Tav mark, and the Tav letter is the last and 22nd letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, which is the 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Okay, and so again, from the release of Annie Hall, it is exactly 22 years to the mass school shooting, which, by the way, was done by the 2 guys whose name is Harris. One of them is, the last name is Harris, and the other one has the initials DK. And so that hints at Kamala Devi Harris. And the shooting was exactly 180 the Columbine shooting in the 38th state was exactly 180 1,800 weeks which is 600 plus 600 plus 600 weeks, which is also the equivalent of 12,600 days, which hints at 1,260 days in Bible prophecy regarding the symbolic period of the Antichrist. Okay, so in other words, the shooting done by the two guys that hint at Kamala Harris connects profoundly to the birth of Kamala Harris, and the shooting also connects profoundly to the movie Annie Hall, starring Laurie Bird, which hints at the bird strike for Kamala Harris. Okay, so where were we here? Annie Hall was released, we did that, 22 years exactly, okay, which hints at Ephesians 22:2, and 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, prince of the power of the air, Ephesians 2:2. Okay, and also mass shootings are also symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, the thing. Okay, the things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people. And the thing has, like mass shootings, killed masses of people and is leading to mass demonic possession. Okay, Paul Simon and Shelley Duvall met on the set of Annie Hall, a movie that also starred Laurie Bird. Annie Hall cost $4 million, and it made $44 million. Simon sang, "The Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar," okay, which is music frequencies, prince of the power of the air, 13 weeks and 1 day, which hints at G131, blood disease, before Duvall's death, which is in turn 4 times 4 days before the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash that will fall in the air due to a bird strike. You see how it all ties together here? The movie cost $4 million and made $44 million to confirm the 4 times 4 days after the bird strike, which is why Laurie Bird starred in the movie as Paul Simon's girlfriend in the movie. And the movie, as I just explained, connects to Kamala Harris. It's all amazing. It truly is amazing here. Now, the date that I was talking about here, being 4 times 4 days after the death of Shelley Duvall, was July 27th. Originally, God overwhelmingly pointed to this date with this theme I'm describing here of Revelation 9/11 day, Aliens Day, Seven Thunders Day, Mass Demonic Possession Day, etc. Demons, the demonic realm colliding with the earthly realm day. And God also pointed to this date, July 27th, 2024, in regards to this theme of Kamala Harris dying in a plane crash. And once it was realized that the latter, Kamala Harris dying in a plane crash, would supersede the Revelation 9/11 day, because that's the order in which they must occur, it was figured that July 27th would be the date that Kamala Harris would die in a plane crash, and that July 27th would be a step in the trail of signs, her plane crash being a step in the trail of signs leading to the date of the predicted Revelation 9/11 day, Seven Thunders Day, demonic possession day, okay? And so, what happened on July 27th was exactly what God had been broadcasting ahead of time. God telegraphed ahead of time that this day would be these two themes together, and that's exactly what happened, because Kamala Harris on this day attended a campaign rally in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Okay, Revelation chapter 9, which Revelation 9:11 symbolizes, regards the fallen angels coming out of the bottomless pit. Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash on her way to Los Angeles, which is a hint at fallen angels. And her fall from the air will be symbolic of the passage in the Bible that says that Satan is the prince of the power of the air, which is also music. Music is frequencies. The mass demonic possession will be triggered by 5G frequencies. But music also hints at this, the prince of the power of the air. There's also another Bible passage that describes Lucifer as having been the conductor of music in heaven. Well, anyway, that's why at this campaign rally, James Taylor performed. And that's extremely relevant and prophetic in God's big picture of signs. And how James Taylor and Kamala Harris come together is the only solo hit, the only hit that he wrote, the only number one hit that he personally wrote. He had 2 number one hits. One of the 2 he wrote, which was Fire and Rain. And in that song, there is a well-known lyric in which he describes the name of his former band, The Flying Machine, as being broken in pieces on the ground, which is a hint at Kamala Harris's plane crash and broken pieces on the ground. He refers to his former band as a plane that has crashed and is in pieces on the ground. Well, anyway, it was Pittsfield, Massachusetts, because it hinted at the bottomless pit. But also on this same day, we had another prophetic sign in New England that confirmed all of this, which was the viral video of this massive swarm of dragonflies that came from the ocean on a Saturday afternoon when there were many people on this particular beach in Rhode Island, and the swarm of dragonflies swarmed through them. And the dragon, or a dragon, is symbolic in the book of Revelation. A dragon is used as there's a story of the dragon as an allegory for Satan and the Antichrist. All right, this was in the 13th state, and the number 13 in the Bible is symbolic of the Antichrist. And for example, the 2 Antichrists are described in the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation. Okay, now God, to confirm his signs and connections, pairs certain numbers together, such as 9 and 44 and 23. In fact, these are the main numbers. And I know this because I have been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 6 years. And this is how his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God will provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9, 23, and 44. And that's because the Antichrist became the president in 2009, the 44th president, and he is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. Okay, so we have this 4 times 4 days from the death of Shelley Duvall, which pointed to Stephen King as an Antichrist king, and the slaughter that's the theme of the movie, which I'll get into in the Shining video, and explain that. And also, it's the Shining. It's telepathy. It's demonic power. Okay, so Shelley Duvall points to that. Her death is 4 times 4 days. Oh, and again, her death connected with 13 weeks and 1 day after Paul Simon sang Graceland, shining like a national guitar in the White House, okay, the Mississippi Delta. And again, the 13 weeks and 1 day hints at G131, which is the word in the Greek concordance that means blood disease, which is what person gets from taking the mark of the Antichrist, the thing, the pointy thing, which is what will facilitate the demonic possession. Okay, and so her death is 4 times 4 days to this July 27th date, which we had this sign in the 13th state and the 2 times 3rd state. Okay, Kamala Harris was in the 6th state, Massachusetts, 2 times 3. That's a pairing of 9 and 23, which confirms the signs and connections. That's a pairing of 23 and 44, because the 4 times 4 days to the 2 times 3rd state. All right, now the swarm of dragonflies that came from the ocean onto the beach, the crowded beach, the millions of dragonflies, this video that went viral, this invasion of dragonflies. It's so amazing. It's so a parallel with Revelation chapter 12 and the fallen angels, because that's what Revelation 12 is. The dragon is thrown down with his minions from heaven to earth. Well, anyway, these dragonflies that came out of the ocean, or from the ocean, I don't think they popped out of the water, but that's where this happened. They came from the ocean at low level, right through the crowded beach. All right, and that's symbolism for a flood, a tsunami, a flood. That's what it's symbolism for. That's why October 4th is 1,656 hours after this flood symbolism with the dragonflies on the beach on July 27th. 1,656 because this number in the Bible symbolizes the flood. It was 1,656 years in the chronology between Adam and Noah and the time of the flood. Okay, it's also 69 days, and 6 divided by 9 is 0.666, which is the number of the Antichrist. Now, this July 27th date, which with Kamala Harris in Pittsfield and James Taylor singing about his flying machine band being broken into pieces on the ground. There's more to all of this, by the way, because he was playing with the famous cellist, and I explained that all in the other video. One of the, I forget which video that is. One of the, okay, I forget which video that is, sorry. Well, anyway, that day is 123 days to the date it is predicted that Kamala Harris will fall from the sky on her way to Los Angeles, which hints at fallen angels. I already explained the significance of 123. In fact, we were talking a minute ago about 1 month and 23 days, which hints at 123. Well, this is 123 days. And again, 123 is the 42nd semi-prime number, which is a number that symbolizes the period of the Antichrist and also slaughter in the Bible. And also, 123 is 3 times 41, and again, that hints at the 314 area code that Kamala Harris will crash in. And so there you have it right there. Okay, so there is more amazing information to this amazing story that God is telling. Paul Simon and Shelley Duvall met during the filming of Annie Hall, as was explained, which is a movie about a relationship breaking up. That's the plot of this Woody Allen movie with Diane Keaton. And Simon's song, Graceland, is about his breakup with his ex-wife, which is more astounding, very important confirmation of the connection between the day that Paul Simon sang Graceland at the White House and the day that Shelley Duvall died, who starred in The Shining, which, by the way, is about a house, if you will. The hotel, as explained in the Shining video prophecy video on this channel, which is an absolute must-watch. the prophetic sign that is The Shining is all about the hotel. And so anyway, the point is, though, is that Simon and Duvall met on the set of this most famous movie by Woody Allen, which is about a relationship breakup. And Simon's song Graceland is about a breakup. And his prophetic performance of this song at the White House connects with 13 Weeks and One Day, as explained to the death of Shelley Duvall, who starred in The Shining about bloody murder, and 131 is the word in the concordance that means blood disease. So anyway, it's just more confirmation, but it's amazing because that's really what it's all about here, is how they met, which was about a movie about a relationship breakup, and then the song is about a breakup. Okay, so that's why you have a clear connection between his death and, his singing of the song and Duvall's death. Now, the very interesting, important thing here too is that Paul Simon's next I don't know for sure if it was his next relationship. That was an assumption, but he, after his relationship with Duvall, married Carrie Fisher. And it turns out that Paul Simon met Carrie Fisher through an introduction by Shelley Duvall. So that's amazing. Now we're getting into something so amazing here, but it connects because Shelley Duvall introduced them, Paul Simon and Carrie Fisher. And again, the song Graceland is about the breakup. It's about a breakup, and the movie is about a breakup, and meeting other people. Actually, come to think of it, that's correct. The movie Annie Hall is not only about a breakup of a relationship, but more specifically, meeting other people in the process of breaking up. And that's exactly what happened here between Shelley Duvall, Paul Simon, and Carrie Fisher. Exactly. It's amazing. Now, to be even more precise, the song Graceland, which is about a breakup, is about Simon's breakup with Carrie Fisher. So there's even more confirmation there of this triangle, if you will, between the three. Okay, because the song is about, Paul Simon and Shelley Duvall met on the set of a movie about a relationship breakup, and then Duvall introduced Simon to Carrie Fisher, and Simon's song Graceland is about a breakup with Carrie Fisher. Okay, now that leads us to this. Carrie Fisher died 49 days after Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, Trumpet's election. Okay, so Carrie Fisher died 49 days after Trumpet's election, which was won by 77 electoral votes, and 7 times 7 is 49. Fisher's mother, Debbie Reynolds, another, of course, very famous, extremely famous actress, died 1 day later, 50 days after Trumpet's win. And that's astounding because that's the Omer count. The Omer count in the Bible is a 49-day and a 50-day count to Pentecost. All right, that's how it's described in Leviticus chapter 23. You add the 49 days and 50 days to the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, to the Sabbath. Sorry, not the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of First Fruits, but the Sabbath before the Feast of First Fruits. Okay, so anyway, the point is that it's pointing to Pentecost, 49 and 50 days. That's why it's astounding that the two died 1 day after each other. That's a coincidence. That's an alert that tells us that this is likely a prophetic sign of some sort, how these two famous actresses that are mother and daughter died 1 day apart. And now we know why. It's because it was 49 and 50 days after God's trumpet win. All right? And furthermore, that's even further confirmed with another second witness, which is that Trumpet won by 77 electoral votes, and 7 times 7 is 49, and that's the number of days between Trumpet's win and the death of Carrie Fisher. Oh, and by the way, her fame came with her role in Star Wars, which was released in 77. That just came to me there. That's obviously another confirmation. Now, Fisher died at 60 years old, which is 2 times 30 years, and that hints at 23. And Reynolds, her mother, died at the age of 84. Both of these numbers point to Obama, okay? The basketball president wore jersey 23 in high school, all right? The only president to serve non-consecutive terms skipped the 23rd presidency, just like Barack Obama will also serve non-consecutive terms. Also, Barack Obama, the name Obama in Hebrew gematria is equal to 84, and Obama was born on the date 8/4, which is why Reynolds died at the age of 84. Okay, so both of these ages point to Barack Obama. Now, so this points to Obama, the Antichrist, who will persecute the church, which is why their deaths point to Pentecost, which symbolizes the church, because it is Obama who will persecute the church. Now, Fisher's and Reynolds' combined ages at their death equal to 144, which in Bible prophecy symbolizes those who will be rescued from the persecution from the Antichrists. And I say Antichrists plural because there are 2 in Bible prophecy. The first of the 2 Antichrists from whom Obama will get his power is Pope Francis, who is the 266th Pope, which is why Reynolds died exactly 2,660 days, which is at 266, before Paul Simon sang Graceland and the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar at the White House on April 10th, 2024. 266, this is a typo. This 2,660 days is also exactly 380 weeks. Literally exactly 380 weeks. Graceland was released 3,800% of a year before Obama is predicted to return to the White House as the vice president, and Graceland was released exactly 38 years before Obama is predicted to become the president again. The predicted return to the White House of the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 is the reason why Fisher died at the age of 2 times 30, and the reason why Star Wars was released exactly 2 times 3 years before the release of Return of the Jedi. The character Emperor Palpatine plays a prominent role in the movie Return of the Jedi, and the character's relationship with Darth Vader is symbolic of the relationship between the first and second Antichrists, Pope Francis and Barack Obama. All right, Pope Francis would be, in this parallel, the Emperor Palpatine. This 2 times 3 years connection between the movies that Fisher starred in, Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, is also exactly 2 times 6 times 6 months, which hints at the 266th Pope, Pope Francis. So we have another connection between Reynolds and her daughter Fisher with the Pope here, with the number 266. Okay, well, furthermore, it's 2,660 days in between count between the death of Carrie Fisher and Paul Simon singing Graceland at the White House. Okay, so, and again, the movies were released exactly 6 years apart, which is 2 times 3 years. May 25th in 1977 and May 25th in 1983. Okay, so this 2 times 3 years connection between the movies that Fisher starred in, Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, is also exactly 2 times 6 times 6 months, which hints at the 266th Pope, Pope Francis. This 2 times 6 times 6 months is also exactly, literally exactly, and whenever I say in any of my videos exactly, that's exactly what I mean, literally exactly. So anyway, this 2 times 6 times 6 months is also exactly 313 weeks. And under Emperor, as in the Emperor in Star Wars, and under Emperor Constantine, Rome was officially converted to Christianity in 313 AD. Rome's conversion from paganism to paganized Christianity, which is Catholicism, was arguably the worst thing to happen to Christianity. And this is why the Antichrist Pope Francis was elected on the date 313 in 13, on the anniversary of the collapse of the San Francisco Dam in Los Angeles, which is Spanish for the angels, as in fallen angels. The date 313 in 13 hints at Rome's conversion in 313 AD. And just to further elaborate on how Rome's conversion from paganism to paganized Christianity was the worst thing to happen to Christianity, it institutionalized this paganism, and I don't even want to use the heresy because that's not even a strong enough word. Catholicism is not a legitimate denomination of Christianity, and the thing that God hates most in the Bible, which Catholics for the most part do not ever read, the thing that God hates the most is how the Jews were constantly mixing their true religion with the religion of their pagan neighbors. And God was constantly judging them for that, for them, chastising them for this, and ultimately exiling them for this. This was the grave sin that they were doing, mixing their true religion with the false pagan religion, which is exactly what Catholicism is. Therefore, God absolutely hates Catholicism. Make no mistake, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove this to you. Also, please know, I do not hate Catholics, and neither do I believe God does in general. God hates Catholicism. It's not to say that there will be no Catholics that will be saved. I am not saying that either. But if they are saved, it'll be in spite of their Catholicism, not because of it. But probably, this would be my guess, they would not be super serious Catholics, because that's very serious sin. All right, so to confirm his signs and connections, and by the way, one thing for the so-called conservative Catholics that are Catholics but think that Pope Francis is a bad pope, sorry, but all popes throughout all of history are lowercase a antichrists. And it has always been the case that the Antichrist would be a pope. In fact, the Reformation wouldn't have happened without this knowledge. It was conveniently forgotten in the last few decades, or lost, precisely timed for many Protestants to be fooled also by the Antichrist Pope. But Bible prophecy, furthermore, even in the Old Testament, as well as the book of Revelation, is beyond clear and overwhelming that the Pope is the Antichrist. The office of Pope is blasphemy, and that is the Catholic religion. The claimed authority that this man has to create new religion on top of the Bible, which isn't an authority that this man has. It is blasphemy. Okay? All right. To confirm his signs and connections, God pairs the numbers 23 and 44. The 44th president was the basketball president who wore jersey 23. Paul Simon's song Graceland is about his breakup with his wife, Carrie Fisher. The release of Return of the Jedi, starring Carrie Fisher, was exactly 13 times 3 months before the release of Paul Simon's Graceland. 13 times 3 hints at 133, which is the 44th semi-prime number, which is a number only divisible by 2 other prime numbers, and God uses these for his signs and connections. In turn, the release of Graceland is 3,800% of a year before the 44th president's predicted return as the vice president, and the release of Graceland is exactly 38 years before the predicted return of the 44th president as the president. That's why Return of the Jedi, with starring Carrie Fisher, connects to Paul Simon's release of Graceland with 13 times 3 months, which hints at the 44th semi-prime number. It's because Graceland connects to this return of the 44th president. And Carrie Fisher died exactly 380 weeks in between count before Paul Simon sang Graceland at the White House, which again, as I explained earlier, is 130 days before Obama's predicted to return to the White House as the vice president. And that, again, I explained that's relevant because the number 13 is symbolic of America, and Paul Simon is as well because of his songs, for example, America and American Tune. The other reason for the use of the number 38 with these connections that I'm explaining, the 380 weeks and the 38 years and the 3,800% of a year, the other reason for this is that it hints at 3/8 and 888, which is the numeric value of the name Jesus in Greek gematria. The return of Obama, the Antichrist, which is the language that the New Testament is written in. The return of Obama, the Antichrist, to the White House will precede the return of Lord Jesus Christ to the temple in Jerusalem to set up his age of grace on earth. That's okay. So let me read that again. The return of Obama, the Antichrist, to the White House will precede the return of Lord Jesus Christ to the temple in Jerusalem to set up his age of grace on earth. This return of the Lord on October 12th, 2024, the Day of Atonement in the Hebrew calendar, will be 185 days after Paul Simon sang Graceland at the White House. Okay, there's a parallel here with the symbolism of Graceland at the White House with the temple in Jerusalem.
Okay, so actually October 12th is now predicted to be the date that Joe Biden will step down, Michelle Obama will become the president, and appoint Barack Obama as the vice president. October 12th, 2024, the Day of Atonement in the Hebrew calendar. All right, this isn't the day of the second coming, but this date has been known to be very important. It was believed to be the second coming as far back as 2017. Anyway,
to confirm his signs and connections, God pairs the numbers 23 and 44, and the 44th president was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. 185 is 2 times the 2 times 30th semi-prime number. In other words, the 60th semi-prime number. 185 is the 2 times 30th, which hints at 23, semi-prime number. And 185 days is also the equivalent of 4,440 hours, which hints at 44, making this a pairing of 23 and 44. This is the reason for this connection in between the day that Simon sang Graceland at the White House and the day of the Lord's return to the temple to set up his age of grace. I'll just repeat that. This is the reason for the connection in between the day that Simon sang Graceland at the White House and the day of the Lord's return to the temple to set up his age of grace.
all right, after sending this to my friends this morning, a friend replied with this, which confirms everything as well.
So there is a musician, the most famous blues musician arguably in history, the legend of Robert Johnson, the king of the Delta blues. I should say the king, as in the Antichrist king, as in the king of Egypt, as in the king of rock and roll who lived in Memphis, Tennessee, named after Memphis, Egypt, in a palace, symbolism for a king's palace in Egypt, as in the Delta blues, as in the river delta of the Nile, as in the Mississippi River Delta that was shining like a national guitar. Okay? So the legend of Robert Johnson, king of the Delta blues, is that he sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads to learn to play the guitar. Now, so Robert Johnson is widely said to have been the first rock star or the king of the Delta blues, as it says here. And the thing about Robert Johnson is that he died at an early age, a young age, and he had a career of recording that spanned only 6 months. So all we have from him in terms of recordings were in 2 sessions in 1936 and 37, if I'm correct. And little else is known about him. And it's because there's so little known about him and contradictions in oral accounts of his life that legend grew out of the vacuum to fill in the gaps here of who this Robert Johnson man is, because he is or was very influential in early rock and roll. And there are many, for example, baby boomer generation famous musicians that credit him with being very influential in their music. All right? And on that note, well, I'll get to it in a second, but the man that recorded him released for Columbia Records, assembled Johnson's recordings and titled it King of the Delta Blues Singers, and it was released by Columbia, which is a name that God uses in his signs to symbolize America, in 1961. And that's because the Antichrist was born in 1961. And this alludes to the significance of the death date and birth date, etc., of Robert Johnson. Okay? So, anyway, he because of the lack of information regarding who he is and his history, there arose this legend. It's a very famous legend regarding this musician that's at the crossroads, and he is approached by the devil and is tempted to sell his soul in exchange for fame and the ability to play the guitar. The crossroads is symbolism for an X, which has been explained, is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. I apologize, I just had a big lunch. My brain is not working as efficiently as it was. Okay, so he died on August 16th, 1938, which is highly interesting because that is the date, August 16th, on which the king of rock and roll died. And of course, Elvis Presley is also associated with the Mississippi Delta. Okay? So Robert Johnson spent his life without much financial success. He didn't have fame in his lifetime. And he traveled around the Mississippi Delta region playing in small venues and dances and things of such. Okay? So, but the thing is that he died exactly 188 weeks after the birth of Elvis Presley. Okay? That's an amazing thing because, as again mentioned, 188 is the number that God uses in his signs to reveal connections that are important, and it's because it points to H188, which is the word for woe exclamation mark in Strong's Hebrew Concordance. Also, this 188 weeks is 3 years and 22 days, which hints at Genesis 3:22, which is what God is pointing to regarding the coming lie of aliens. And that will also symbolically begin the alien deception on August 16th, the date that Robert Johnson died and Elvis Presley, these two musicians, as in Prince of the Power of the Air, from the Mississippi River Delta. Okay? Now, the thing is, the Genesis 3:22 is this verse in the book of Genesis in which there is this attempt to achieve immortality. This is the lie that Satan told Eve in the garden in Genesis chapter 3, the first lie ever told, which was that she surely wouldn't die. All right? And things come full circle at the end. The aliens, in some way, will be promising eternal life, immortality, through transhumanism technology and things. Okay? So, and again, Elvis is associated with the thing, as I explained earlier. So, now we have a connection between these two musicians from the Mississippi Delta. These two famous musicians, and both of them have the name King in their titles, the King of Rock and Roll and the King of Delta Blues, which is the forerunner of rock and roll. Now, also, there's more to this because this 188 weeks, the date of his death is also exactly 39 years before the death of Elvis Presley. Now, that hints at 3 nines, 999, the number that symbolizes God's judgment, and God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. It is also 13 times 3, and 133 is the 44th semi-prime number, and the Antichrist king is the 44th president. In turn, Elvis Presley's death on August 16th, 1977, at the age of 42, which is a period of time that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy, 42 months. Elvis died at the age of 42 years on August 16th, 1977, on the day that it was recorded by astronomers, what is called WOW signal, which for many decades was unexplained and was believed by many to likely have been originated from aliens. Okay? There's more to that. That'll be explained in other upcoming videos. But anyway, the death of Elvis Presley is exactly 47 years before Aliens Deception Day on August 16th, 2024. 47 years hints at aliens because the biggest thing that symbolizes aliens that God uses is Roswell, New Mexico, and that incident occurred on the date 7/4 in 47 in the 47th state. And the date 7/4 hints at 47, and vice versa. 47 hints at the date 7/4, which symbolizes America. And again, what God is communicating is that the Mississippi Delta is symbolism for America. The national guitar. And music and musicians have been very, very important in God's big picture of signs. Okay, and we were talking about Carter earlier, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is known as the rock and roll president. He had many rock and roll musicians visit him at the White House. There's a documentary, for example, that came out in 2019, The Rock and Roll President, about Jimmy Carter. Okay, and we've already talked about the connection between Paul Simon and Jimmy Carter. Well, Jimmy Carter was inaugurated in '77, the year that Elvis Presley died. The full name of the king of Delta blues, who is said to have sold his soul to the devil, is Robert Leroy Johnson. God has used the song Leroy Brown by Joe Croce or whatever. Anyway, another early 70s rock and roll song. And Leroy Brown is equivalent to 248 in simple English gematria. The USA is 248 years old. Again, confirmation that all of this is symbolism for America, the Mississippi Delta, and judgment coming for America, and America being split into two, from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi. That's what's coming. It is said that Robert Johnson was born on the date 5/8 in 1911, which hints at the 5th and 8th kings, and Revelation 9:11, the king of destruction. This is 1,618 and 4 days, actually, after the birth of America, and that's the golden ratio, 1.618. The day he was born is the 128th day of the year, which hints at the word for the Ethiopian, as explained earlier, G128. And that's relevant because the Ethiopian was returning to Egypt, as I explained earlier. Another thing, too, about Robert Johnson is that he died on August 16th, 1938, exactly 86 years before August 16th, 2024, which is predicted to be Delta Brainwaves Day. As I've been explaining, you could assign one of many titles to this day because it is the symbolic beginning of something that's leading to demonic possession through delta brainwaves. So this 86 years, in fact, turns out to be relevant for this reason. The following reason. Robert Johnson is associated with the Devil at the Crossroads legend, which is about selling one's soul to the devil. And the news story about the Graceland estate, which is all connected, right? It's this Mississippi Delta symbol. There was the story in May regarding the attempt by con artists to auction off the Graceland estate. These cons from overseas were orchestrating what could have been the biggest fraud ever, which is that, and it was going through the courts. The courts were about to foreclose on the Graceland estate on the claim that Lisa Marie had this overwhelming debt before she died. And she died in January of 2023. And it came out and was finally determined in the courts that this was a hoax on May 22nd, 2024. But by this time it had become a national news story, which is enough for it to be a prophetic sign from God. The sale of Graceland estate, which hints at the sale of one's soul to the devil. That's what the symbolism here, because again, I just explained how Robert Johnson and Elvis Presley connect. Okay, because they connect, therefore this story about the sale of Elvis's estate is relevant because Robert Johnson is about the sale of his soul. Okay, and furthermore, they both died on the same dates as I mentioned. They're both named kings, and this date connects the span of their deaths on these dates. August 16th leads to 86 years later, to August 16th, 2024, Delta Brainwaves Day. That confirms the relevance of 86 days. The 86 years confirms the 86 days between May 22nd and the end of this story about the sale of, or the story was that the Graceland estate was going to go up for auction, was going to go up for sale to cover the debts that supposedly Lisa Marie had incurred and didn't pay back before she died. So I should have emphasized that. The story is about how Graceland estate was about to go up for sale. Okay? And that date that all ended, that story, was on May 22nd. And that date is 86 days before Delta Brainwaves Day. And prior to today, and learning all of what has been learned and explained here, it was recognized that this story regarding Graceland Estate and its sale, potential sale, was a prophetic sign, because of course it is. God's been pointing to the Graceland Estate in so many different ways through his prophetic signs, and we are at the end, and you can't have a story like this come out unless it's very meaningful. But it was not determined how this fit. But now it's clear. It's a confirmation. This story about the potential sale of the Graceland estate is confirmation of Delta Brainwaves Day, 86 days later. 86 is relevant because it is the 29th semi-prime number. And if God were to symbolize a number with only two numbers, if God were to symbolize 9/11 with only two numbers, it would either be 29 or 92, as the 2 hints at 1 and 1. And that's why God uses 29 and 92 in his signs for this purpose, in proper context. And what proves the context here is we are talking about Revelation 9/11 Day. Delta Brainwaves Day is also Revelation 9/11 Day in God's signs. God is communicating this August 16th, 2024 date in these terms. God is, in other words, saying without what is discussed in this video, he has said in many different ways that this symbolic date is the symbolic beginning of King Abaddon in Revelation 9/11, when the fallen angels are released from the bottomless pit, right? This is the day, like I was saying, in which the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm, which is symbolized in Revelation 9 and Revelation 9:11 is the verse that symbolizes this. And so that's why the 86, because it hints at the number 29, which symbolizes Revelation 9/11 Day.
Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction that is from God
is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.